It was around 8:40 p.m., the kind of April evening where the air still carries a bite and the sky's painted in that heavy steel blue just before full dark. I'd been on shift since 5, running food deliveries for one of those apps we all rely on now. It wasn't a busy night quiet, actually, and I was thinking of calling it early when the ping came in. Order number 547233, 1x cheeseburger combo, 1x vanilla milkshake, 1x apple pie, delivered to 397 Hollow Creek Road. Hollow Creek. The name felt familiar but not in a good way. I stared at the screen in my car for a long second, letting the GPS load. I even caught myself whispering the name again like it might ring a different bell. But it didn't. Only one thing came to mind. Someone had told me once that nobody lived out there anymore. I shrugged it off. Food's food, a tip's a tip, and gas isn't free. I picked up the order from a late-night diner on Main Street. The girl at the counter handed me the bag with a weird look, her nose wrinkling like she'd smelled something off. "You delivering that out to Hollow Creek?" she asked. "Yeah," I replied almost cautiously. "You know the place?" Her eyes darted to the kitchen then back at me. "They haven't had anyone out there in years. At least, not anyone who opens the door." She said it like a warning, but her tone was soft like she didn't want to make it a big deal. I gave her a tired half-smile. "Well, someone ordered food and I doubt it's a ghost craving fries." She didn't laugh. On the drive there, I kept thinking about how quiet the streets were. Not just the usual kind of small-town quiet, but this deep, heavy stillness. Once I left the last bit of lit-up neighborhood behind, it was just me, the hum of my car, and darkness thick enough to feel like it was pressing against the windows. My GPS spun a bit before locking onto the narrow road leading out to Hollow Creek. That's when it really hit me this wasn't a street. It was an old forest road, almost swallowed by trees, like it hadn't been properly driven on in years. I stopped at the entrance. Turned back, my gut whispered. But there was a name on the app, a full address, and the delivery timer ticking away like a countdown. I couldn't just not deliver. I could already feel the app penalizing me if I bailed. Besides, I told myself, people exaggerate things all the time. Maybe the area just looks abandoned. So I drove in. The road narrowed fast. Potholes, overgrown roots, that crunch of gravel that always sounds louder when you're alone. The further in I got, the more the trees seemed to lean in, blocking out what little moonlight there was. My headlights caught nothing but bark, shadows, and the occasional flicker of movement, probably just animals, but I found myself gripping the wheel harder each time. 10 minutes in, I spotted it. 397 Hollow Creek. It was a house, all right. A large 2-story cabin-style place set back from the road, mostly hidden behind trees and brush. No lights on. No car in the drive. Windows dark. Roof sagging in one corner. The front porch looked like it hadn't felt a footstep in years. I pulled in anyway, because there was a delivery to make. And someone or something was waiting for their food. I sat in the car for a while with the engine running, just staring at the house. Something about it didn't sit right. Maybe it was the way the porch sagged like a tired back, or how the front windows reflected nothing, no hint of my headlights, no glimpse of the woods behind me, just flat, black squares like they'd been painted on. I cut the engine. Immediately the silence rolled in thick, sudden, complete. The kind of silence that didn't feel empty but full, like the world had taken a breath and was holding it. I grabbed the bag and stepped out. The air out there was cold. Not April cold, wrong cold. It made my breath fog even though I hadn't seen frost all week. The smell was odd too, not strong, just old. The scent of wood left wet too long. Moss. Something like pennies and earth and the memory of smoke. The gravel under my feet was soft with moss and dead leaves, quiet enough that each step seemed muffled. I walked slowly toward the house, watching the porch. It creaked once as a breeze moved past, but there was no wind. The trees didn't rustle. Not a single leaf stirred. I climbed the steps. Each one groaned beneath me, and I found myself stepping gently like I didn't want to wake someone. The front door was a faded gray, the kind that used to be white long ago. Chipped paint curled away at the corners. There was no doorbell, just a tarnished iron knocker shaped like a lion's head, its features worn smooth. I knocked once. Then again. Nothing. No footsteps, no shuffling inside. No lights flicking on. I stood there, holding the greasy bag of food in one hand, the cold starting to bite at my fingers. The screen of my phone lit up automatically. "You've arrived." Complete delivery? I hesitated. Leave at door was selected by default. But something made me stay. Maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it was the money. Maybe I just needed to know if anyone was really inside. I knocked again, louder. Still nothing. I turned to leave. I was halfway down the steps when I heard it. Click. Not loud but unmistakable. I turned. The door was open just slightly. Not all the way, not swung wide with a bang. Just ajar. Like someone inside had been watching and waited until I gave up to make a move. I froze. There was no light inside. Nothing but blackness beyond the crack. I couldn't see movement. No voice came. No thanks or even a cough. Just the door now open and the smell from within. It was different than before. Stronger now. Wet wood, yes, but mixed with something sweeter and spoiled. Like fruit left to rot in a plastic bag. And something metallic underneath. My heart started knocking harder than my hand had. I took a step back. I called out. "Hello? I've got your order." Nothing. I looked down at the bag. Still warm. Condensation pressed against the inside of the plastic lid on the shake. The burger box was slightly crushed, the fries starting to bleed grease through the brown paper. I moved back up, slowly, and placed the bag right at the threshold. I didn't step inside. My fingers tingled the moment I leaned in. Like the air inside was electric or colder somehow, like it pulled at the warmth in my skin. Then, a creak. Deeper in the house. Floorboards, slow and deliberate. Someone walking but with soft steps as if barefoot. No light followed. No words. Just that quiet movement. I straightened. My throat was dry. My eyes strained into the dark, trying to find a shape, a silhouette, anything. But the house gave nothing back. So I turned and started back to the car, walking quicker than before. I didn't run, not yet, but every instinct I had was screaming now. I didn't know what I'd just delivered food to. I didn't know if it was a prank or some recluse or... Then my phone buzzed. I jumped. The screen lit up. "Thanks for the food," smiley face. No name. No reply option. Just that. I stared at the screen. Then at the house. The door was still ajar. And someone was standing behind it now. A shape. Tall. Thin. Perfectly still. Just visible between the frame and the edge of the door. I couldn't see a face. Just the outline of a body. It hadn't been there seconds ago. It didn't move. It just stood there watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you like this story. I couldn't remember unlocking my car, but I found myself already inside it, door slammed shut, one hand fumbling for the ignition. My eyes never left the porch. The figure behind the door hadn't moved. Still framed in that perfect slice of darkness between the hinges and the jamb, as if frozen or waiting. The engine wouldn't start the first time. That never happens. I keep my car in decent shape. Oil changes. New battery. But when I turned the key, it just clicked. Nothing more. Again. Click. I slapped the steering wheel. Tried again. The engine stuttered to life with a choking gasp, like something old waking up against its will. I shifted into reverse without even checking the mirrors and backed out too fast, bumping over a root that made the whole car jolt sideways. Gravel spat up beneath my tires as I swung back onto the forest road. I didn't look back. I didn't want to see the door closing. Or still open. Or the figure stepping forward. All I wanted was to get back to the main road. But Hollow Creek doesn't let go that easy. After 3 minutes of driving, I realized the trees looked wrong. I should have passed that bent-over oak by now, the one shaped like a man mid-bough. I remembered it clearly on the way in. But it wasn't there. Just more pines. Denser now. Closer. The dirt road narrowed even further. My side mirrors brushed branches. The GPS had stopped tracking me. My phone was lit, but the signal was gone. The map just showed a gray dot floating in a sea of nothing. I killed the app, reopened it. Nothing. Blank screen. No signal. No Wi-Fi. I glanced at the time, 9:42 p.m. That meant I'd been there at the house for almost 20 minutes. That couldn't be right. It hadn't felt like 20. Maybe 10 max. I tried to shake it off. I focused on the road. Turned left at the first fork I saw, hoping to loop back to town. But the road was different. This wasn't the same way I came. I hadn't passed this twisted iron fence before, hadn't seen this stone marker with its half-buried letters, something about Creek Hill Cemetery, etched so faintly it looked like a whisper in stone. I kept driving. 5 minutes later, I passed the same cemetery sign again. I stopped the car. Turned it off. Sat in silence. It wasn't just confusion now, it was wrongness. The kind that claws at your ribs from the inside. I felt it in my gut, in the back of my throat. My body knew something I didn't. I tried calling someone. Anyone. But my phone had changed. The home screen still showed my background, my dog, Frankie, in his ridiculous Halloween costume, but the notifications were gone. No messages. No missed calls. No delivery app pinging me. Just one new thing. At the top of the screen, one unread message. I opened it. But there was no text. Just a photo. Blurry. grainy, taken in low light. It was a picture of me, standing on the porch, holding the food bag. My head slightly turned like I was listening for something inside. And the door. The door in the picture was already open. I stared at it for a long time. Tried to think of rational explanations. Maybe the app took a security photo without me realizing. Some kind of facial recognition update. Maybe someone inside the house took it through a peephole. But the angle was wrong. It was taken from behind me. From the trees. My hands went cold. I could feel sweat on my lower back, and yet the air inside the car was icy. The vents weren't blowing. The engine was off. Then came the second buzz. Another photo. This time, me sitting in the car. Hands on the wheel. Just like now. Except the background behind me wasn't the trees. It wasn't even the road. It was the porch again. Same cracked steps. Same gray door. And behind me in the photo, visible through the back window, was the figure. Closer this time. No longer just a shape. Not quite a face. But almost. Something humanoid. No eyes. Just the vague contours of them. Or the idea of them. Like they were implied in the darkness. I turned in my seat, breath caught in my chest. Nothing there. Just trees. Road. Empty night. But that did nothing to slow my heartbeat. Nothing to steady my hands. I was shaking now. I didn't remember taking the photo. I didn't remember anyone else being near me. Then the phone buzzed again. Third photo. But this time there was no image. Just a message. Don't leave yet. I didn't move for a long time after that message. The screen stayed lit in my lap. The words just sat there, don't leave yet, like they were still being typed, still fresh, still settling in. I stared so long that the brightness began to burn into my vision. When I finally blinked, the afterimage hovered over the windshield like a warning smeared across the glass. A new kind of silence had crept in by then. Not just the quiet of trees and dirt roads and night, but something internal. The kind where even your thoughts sound muffled like they're underwater. The only thing I could hear was my own breathing, and even that felt distant, like it wasn't mine anymore. I started the car again. It turned over this time, almost too easily, as if the engine had been waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't look at the phone. I just drove. Not fast. Not yet. Just steady, trying to convince myself that if I kept moving forward, the forest would eventually spit me back out where I began. But the road had changed again. I passed the same iron fence. Again. Same crooked gate. Same blackened marker stone half swallowed by weeds. I kept going. My hands clenched tighter around the steering wheel. I passed a fallen tree that hadn't been there before. Then again. And again. Each time I circled around, something shifted. The trees grew closer to the road. The sky darker. The moss on the ground thicker, creeping up the bases of trunks like green mold on rotting bread. And the silence more aggressive now. Like it was pushing in on the car from all sides. Eventually I had to stop. Because my headlights caught something in the road. A person. No, not a person. A shape. Standing dead center in the path, facing away from me. Motionless. It looked human. Tall. Pale. But it had no coat, no shoes, no details. Just the silhouette of bare arms and a thin neck and long legs that didn't bend quite right. It didn't react to the lights. Didn't move. Didn't even seem to breathe. I didn't honk. I don't know why. I should have. Instead, I waited. Just watched. Trying to decide if it was real or a trick of my headlights or fog or some weird shaped tree. But it turned. Not fast. Not slow. Just deliberately. And there it was again, that not a face. Like skin over an idea. Something almost human, wearing the outline of a person like a jacket it didn't know how to button. The longer I stared, the less sense it made. Like my eyes were trying to convince me it was normal, even as every nerve in my spine screamed otherwise. It didn't come closer. It didn't need to. Because my phone buzzed. I didn't look. It buzzed again. And again. Each vibration heavier than the last, like a heartbeat in reverse. I finally reached down and flipped it over just to shut it up. But the screen didn't show any new messages. Not at first. Then one by one they appeared. You forgot something. It's still warm. Come back. The last one made me blink. Made something cold slide down the back of my neck like water dripping into my spine. You're already back. I looked up. The figure was gone. And the road in front of me. It was no longer the woods. It was the driveway. Gravel. Moss. Sagging porch. The house at 397 Hollow Creek Road was standing in front of me again, exactly as I'd left it. The front door still ajar. The porch light off, but glowing faintly now, like a dying firefly. I checked my mirrors. The road behind me was gone. Only trees. No path. No exit. My mouth had gone dry again, but I could taste metal on the back of my tongue, like I'd been biting a penny. My chest felt tight. Not panic, this wasn't panic anymore. Panic needs a way out. This was something else. This was the moment you stop believing in the structure of things, time, maps, cause and effect. I looked down at my hands. Still on the wheel. Still trembling. And something new on my wrist. A smudge. No, not a smudge. Faint. Thin. A print. 5 long, gray fingerprints. As if something had grabbed me while I wasn't paying attention. I stared at them, breath caught in my throat. I hadn't been touched. Had I? I opened the car door. Slowly. The cold outside was worse now, sharp enough to feel like it might cut. I stepped out, legs stiff like I'd been sitting for hours. My knees popped. Something in the air had changed. There was a sound now. A slow creaking, steady and rhythmic, like the moan of wood under weight. Not coming from the house. Not quite. From beside it, maybe. Or beneath it. It was hard to tell. The sound was all around, woven into the trees, rising and falling with no rhythm a human could follow. And then, for the first time, I saw light inside the house. Faint. Flickering. Somewhere in the back. Moved. And with it, the sound of footsteps on old floorboards. I couldn't see who or what was walking. But I knew it was waiting for me. Because I hadn't left anything behind. Not food. Not a phone. Not anything physical. But the message had been clear. You forgot something. I hadn't figured out what it was yet. But I had a feeling. I was about to. I stepped out of the car. The gravel beneath my shoes was softer now, almost spongy. The ground had a different weight to it, as though the earth itself had grown tired of pretending. Each footfall sank just enough to feel unnatural, as if I were walking across a patch of ground that had recently been dug up and only hastily covered again. The trees behind me were quiet. No wind. No insects. Not even the rustling of branches. It was the kind of silence that suggests something is listening. Watching. Holding its breath. The house didn't look like it had before. It was the same building, yes, same porch, same sagging rooflines, same door barely ajar, but it had gained weight somehow. Not physically. Spiritually. As if the longer I stood looking at it, the more gravity it seemed to have, pulling at my chest, my limbs, the backs of my knees. Drawing me in like it knew something about me that I didn't. I walked toward it. My steps were slow, careful, like I was walking on ice I didn't trust. The porch creaked under my weight just as it had the first time, but now the creak was drawn out, lower, almost groaning. The front door, half open, swayed slightly with each step I took. Not from wind. There was no wind. It swayed like it was reacting to me. Responding. When I reached the threshold, I didn't knock. I didn't call out. I stepped inside just far enough that the door could fall closed behind me. And it did. Not with a slam. With a click. A polite, final click. Like the sound of an elevator door shutting just before it begins its descent. Inside the house was warm. Warmer than it should have been. Not cozy warm. Uncomfortably warm. The kind of thick, humid heat that clings to your clothes and presses into your skin. It smelled like dust, damp wood, something faintly metallic. And beneath that, food. The smell of food. I moved through the narrow hallway, each step muted on the warped wood. The walls were bare. No photos. No paintings. Just peeling paint and hairline cracks that spidered across the surface like veins. The flickering light I'd seen from the car was coming from the kitchen. I followed it. And stopped at the doorway. The light wasn't from a bulb or a candle. It was from a television. A small, ancient box TV resting on the floor in the corner. Static poured from it in soft waves, white and gray snow flickering over glass. The low hiss filling the air like a whisper too constant to be natural. And on the table beside it was the food I'd delivered. The same white paper bag. Untouched. Steam still rising from the containers. Still warm. I stared at it. My name was still written in thick black marker across the receipt stapled to the bag, order number 472, Josh M. But I hadn't written my name on it. Ever. I took a step closer. The plastic lid on one of the containers had warped from the heat, creating a shallow dip in the center, collecting a slow bead of condensation. I reached out and touched the side of the bag. Still warm. But how? The timer on my phone when I finally had the nerve to check said 10:13 p.m. I'd been gone almost an hour. Maybe more. The GPS was still blank. Still no signal. Another buzz. A new message. This time it came from a number I didn't recognize. No contact name. No icon. Just the words. You brought it inside. That's good. The lights flickered above me. But there were no light bulbs in the ceiling. I looked up anyway. And the shadows had changed. They didn't move exactly, but they leaned, tilted, slightly off from the direction of the TV glow, as if the light was being bent around something invisible standing beside me. The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. Not claustrophobic. Occupied. The air grew heavier. The heat thicker. The static louder. And from behind me very softly, I heard the sound of footsteps. Not coming down the hallway. Not from another room. From above. The ceiling. Not stomping. Not walking. Just a slow, steady shift. Like someone crawling across the ceiling beams on their elbows and knees, pressing gently into the wood, watching. I turned around. Nothing. But something had changed in the hallway. The door at the far end, the one I hadn't noticed before, was now slightly open. A warm light bled out from it, not quite white. Not quite yellow. That strange in-between glow of a bathroom light left on too long, aged by time. I didn't want to go toward it, but my feet moved anyway. The hallway stretched as I walked. At least it felt like it did. The floorboards grew longer. The shadows deeper. And the further I went, the more the house changed. Subtly. The wallpaper shifted from pale beige to a deeper, older brown. The smell changed to no longer food. Something sweet now. Rot sweet. Like dried fruit left in the sun too long. I reached the door. It opened fully on its own. Inside was a small room. Empty except for a single chair in the center. Wooden. High-backed. Facing the far wall. There was a shape sitting in it. I couldn't see its face. Its arms rested on the chair's edge, thin fingers curled gently around the wood. Its back rose and fell slowly with each breath. That was the worst part, that it was breathing. Calmly. Patiently. I stayed in the doorway. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I watched. And after a long pause, it turned its head just slightly. Only enough for me to see the edge of its cheek. And a smile. Not cruel. Not angry. Just inevitable. Then it spoke. A voice dry and low, as if it hadn't been used in years. Now you can stay. The door behind me closed. The light faded. And somewhere far away outside the house, outside the forest, outside the phone signal and the delivery route and the night I thought I still belonged to, my car sat idling. Still running. Headlights aimed at the trees. Still waiting for someone to come back. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.